What's going to happen when you graduate? You're going to go out and you're going to look for a job. What's going to make you want to keep working at that one job? You have to tell yourself, I'll show him that I can do it.
But, you know, I've always heard about, like, positive self-talk, and we say, what can I do to make it better?
Yeah.
I think that in a student environment, everybody should try to help each other.
I keep thinking of that word attitude, because attitude is based on your self-esteem, and self-esteem is based on your attitude, and that word keeps coming up.
Conversations in a classroom. Talk between students, unrehearsed, sometimes frank, sometimes pretentious, but always honest. What a wonderful opportunity to express a point of view, to explore that intellectual bond between students which ties their individual personalities into a common culture. What better way to break down the barriers of programmed learning and reveal the underlying incentives which make good students and good teachers outstanding. I'm George Turnbull, a professor in the Department of Communication Design here at California State University Chico. I've produced this program in response to the distinct honor of having been selected the university's outstanding teacher for 1989. The ultimate goal of the teacher is to stimulate the intellectual and emotional processes which encourage the student to learn. Communication is the tool, information is the subject, and presentation is the method. We use the amount of information, the quality of the material, and the method of presenting pertinent information to the largest number of people as the criteria to assess the value of a teacher. Whether or not that information ever becomes knowledge depends on the student. The most effective teacher may marshal within each person the energy, ambition, and motivation which will make him or her successful as a student. It is up to the individual whether these lessons learned mature into the kind of knowledge which will ensure success in other aspects of life. I have selected 8 people whom I've been fortunate enough to have had in some of my classes. I chose these graduates as representative of the 2,500 other students which, as a faculty member of the California State University system, I've taught over the last 24 years. All but one of the group live on the West Coast. Mr. Teensma lives in Massachusetts. Although each person has been educated within the same academic system, followed the same guidelines for a broad liberal arts education, and been exposed to the same tenets regarding their professional education, each has molded his or her career in a separate direction. I chose these particular people because, as students, and later as I followed their careers, I was impressed with the vigor with which they approached their work and their lives. For the next few minutes, I'm going to let you meet these people, and they will share with you a short glimpse of some of their accomplishments. We'll find out where they are and what they're doing. We'll see the separate roles which have been assumed by the different graduates. We'll look at examples of each person's work. We'll enjoy the prominence of the examples and also the skill with which each designer has performed his or her task. Perhaps we can enjoy the lessons found in their experience. Michelle Shibata is a graphic designer who works in San Francisco. The quality of her work as a design director for Addison Design Consultants and also for SBG Partners, 2 of the city's premier design firms, exemplifies her ability to function in the mainstream of corporate design. Michelle was an assertive student, demanding of her instructors and willing to accept only those answers which explained each question fully. She seemed to draw on the energy of the subject and the design environment.
I'm not being challenged. I just feel, like I said, I'm wasting my time. I'd rather be in an environment that's very stimulating, that I'm constantly learning.
She carried this source of motivation as it affected her ability to solve problems into her professional life.
Working as a designer, you start seeing things faster. You see answers. The answers come a little bit quicker. You can tell right away what's right and what's wrong. And by the time it was like the second or third year, I kind of knew what was right and what was wrong. And so in essence, I was pretty much directing my own work. And it was an easy transition into this point now to direct other people's work, which is a little more difficult. I will admit that this is something new for me. I like to be around a team of people. I do get inspired, though, by other things. For example, either going on to conferences that you can get, again, from other people outside your own environment. I also have traveled some, and that's really helped, too, to kind of break open, different ways of approaching things. So it's, people, the environment, and also going beyond your environment.
For each recent graduate, opportunity often sets career direction. The motivated designer applies the principles of visual thinking to a variety of problems looking for solutions. A trip to Willis Design Firm in Petaluma afforded some comments from Jim Durgan, a successful designer who is involved in the product design for the gift industry.
I started in the print design industry, and once I was in print, I realized there were several different areas out there, and that I wanted to explore. I really felt like I'm still in a developmental stage, and so I wanted to try many different areas in the design field. I'm finding out there are different opportunities under the product design category. Some of our items include the Tobin Fraley carousel line. They're musical carousel horses on wooden bases. They're collector's items, and they have a musical movement in them. We have Peanuts as a licensed line. We work with Charles Schultz to develop three-dimensional Peanuts characters. So we are in the gift industry and sell throughout the country in the gift industry market. I always found it interesting, the full circles in life. I'm constantly reflecting back onto my previous experiences in college, my childhood, and pulling them forward and using them in the marketplace.
Homemaker, mother, teacher, entrepreneur, and graphic designer, her resume of skills has established Marcia Herman in the small but formidable market area of the central Sacramento Valley.
I'm not just a designer for identities, or I'm not just a package designer. Modesto is small enough that you are required to basically do the range of things, visual solutions, from promotional materials of all kinds to identities. There's posters, there's billboards, there's annual reports, there's capability brochures, and you're expected to be able to kind of do all of those and provide a good solution in every area.
Even though the business community is confronted daily with new images from various sources of media, a geographic isolation is prevalent. Isolation which is probably caused by factors other than awareness. For example, the influence of restrictive budgets and the need for local industry to be educated to contemporary methods of communicating visual messages.
If there was a shortcoming in living in a small town, I think it was that I didn't know what was happening in the larger firms. Once I felt like I got the grasp of a small firm, I wanted to know what was happening in the larger firms. Why was it that, possibly they were making it into the annuals? I would like to feel like I was venturing out again as I did in school. I felt like I was kind of going for it, and I'd like that challenge again to reoccur. Right now I feel like what I do comes very naturally, and I'd like to have more challenge, I think. So I'll look for that.
The people whom you've just seen are recent alumni. They've been out of college for 6 years or less. I'm always fascinated by the versatility of the new design graduates and how they apply the fundamentals of visual thought. Time seems to strengthen and clarify those elements of their education which seemed vague and ambiguous when they were students. As they develop their work, they also develop their understanding of the visual language. They become, in effect, bilingual. The knowledge becomes an integral part of the person. Wherever they go, whatever they do, they can meet the challenge with confidence. Tom Saputo graduated in 1981. He's 33. He and Sandy have 2 children.
I work at Team One Advertising, which is a division of Saatchi & Saatchi. Basically, we're an offshoot of the Dancer Fitzgerald sample, which was bought by Saatchi & Saatchi early '86. I head up the collateral division of Lexus Automotive, which is a new company being formed by Toyota, and it's a luxury line. I guess the attraction to this position was the fact that it was something that hadn't been established, didn't have an image, and they were looking for someone to create a look for a new car. And I couldn't think of anything more exciting in the advertising field right now than trying to create something new.
For Tom, the challenge has always been to learn, and by learning to create something new.
The learning process is how much you can take away from what you're seeing, and how much you want to be exposed to learning. Because there's a lot of people, especially in the advertising end, who basically get into positions and say, okay, this is it. I'm here, I've arrived, and that's it. And I'll never be happy that way. For the longest time, I felt like I would be comfortable, you know, being a vice president in an advertising agency, doing my own projects, and nobody bothering me. And now I find myself in that position, and I keep thinking I should be 35 or 40, and now I'm wondering what I do next.
Rudolf Arnheim says, visual thinking aims at clarity obtained by significant order. The suggestion that the visual language employs the same practical properties which are applied to other forms of communication should not be a surprise. Thinking in terms which transcend words and relate to purely sensual or spatial entities is a tool of the planner in many segments of industry. Graphic designers see their contribution to communication as more than arranging elements on a page in order to enhance verbal material. They use visual statements as a method to interpret and influence perception. Jay Bainan of Bainan Associates is a graphic designer. He considers himself a problem solver who uses visual tools.
We are a medium-sized firm specializing in corporate work, a lot of corporate identity and related assignment. We find that our main source of business is problem solving, the challenge to solve image and communication problems. And I think image is the big one, because image, how you appear, how you dress, is the first impression anybody gets when they meet a person. The same thing about a company. So how it presents itself can have a big effect on a sale or continuing marketability of a firm. I got much more rewards sitting down with clients, working with them on a one-to-one basis, and solving whatever communication need or marketing need they might have. So the motivating factor that led me in that direction, or the confidence builder, I think really came out of an education that I had at Long Beach, which was a motivator to take risks, to go out in areas that you weren't particularly comfortable with. And you may make it, you may not.
A small design firm in Long Beach has, for the last 18 years, received numerous awards for the excellence of their graphic design. Seated firmly in the middle of an area which attracted the Pacific Rim U.S. corporate offices, the design firm took full advantage of the insurgence of foreign automobile manufacturers. They created the visual standards by which foreign and domestic automotive collateral material is judged, and will be judged for years to come.
My name is Steve Fuller. I'm located in Long Beach, California. I own a company called the Designery Incorporated, and we're in the business of doing graphics for large international and national corporations. I've always thought of myself as a designer, but I think because of the growth of the business and the amount of work that we're doing now, it's difficult for me to stay behind a drawing board. In fact, I, at this point, spend very little time designing, which doesn't mean I'm not involved in the creative process. We, over the years, I think, have been pegged as that automotive, quote-unquote, studio in Long Beach, not necessarily wanting to have that title, but I think finally admitting that we knew a lot about how to develop materials and graphic support that help potential buyers figure out what they should buy when they walk into a dealership. And so, other than being hopefully doing great design, we've also become semi-experts on on how those kinds of businesses work and what their needs are. You know, we're going through incredible changes in the industry. The ruling pen is out, and the Mac 2 is in. You know, that's a whole area that's frightening to me, but exciting at the same time. I have to, in a sense, put down my my drawing tools and learn how to do this same kind of thing in a totally different way.
A small New England village, 100 miles west of Boston and about 100 miles north of New York City, may not seem to be the proper setting for a sophisticated publication design firm. But creative energy, imagination, and technology have made it possible.
I'm Hans Tainsma, and I live in Williamsburg, Massachusetts, a little town in the hills of western Massachusetts, a very convenient location because I like to go into the big town, but I love to be out here in the woods. I run a little design studio called Impress, and being out in the woods, we could get very hungry if we waited for business to come by, so we really get all our work out of the bigger towns. And thanks to the magic of fax and, of course, Federal Express and all that, these days you can be pretty much anywhere you want to be if you're in my kind of business, which is designing books and magazines. I learned more on the job about the aspects of magazine publishing than I think I would have learned if I took every course ever offered. You can't just be an art director and expect to do your job. You have to sneak into editorial meetings. You have to wear the editor's hat. You've got to hobnob with writers. You've got to think of yourself as an illustrator and a photographer and a calligrapher. After Outside and Rolling Stone and Rocky Mountain, I moved to Cambridge afterwards and redesigned New Age. That was kind of my yogurt and yoga phase. I redesigned Self-Care magazine, and that was my better, check up on yourself business. It's time to take better care of yourself. So that became that little phase, not just designing a magazine, but really getting into the subject. I did Savvy magazine in New York City, and that opened up my eyes. I got involved in the editorial aspect of the magazine. Then I designed a magazine called Eating Well, and once again I checked up on myself again. I got involved in the You Are What You Eat syndrome, and then I redesigned Musician magazine and got that out of my system. In between, I did a lot of books, pictorial books, big coffee table books, the kinds of things that don't make a lot of money but give you a lot of pride. I think in 5 years I want to design books and magazines that mean more to me. I would like them to continue to entertain, but I want them to inform a little bit more. And I think in the communication design that I'm into, I can play a small role in that.
A healthy academic background will, inevitably, produce those people who are dedicated to a scholarly approach to their subject. The next and last designer we will meet devoted himself to the study of the letter form. Larry Brady holds the respect of his peers for his knowledge and influence in the areas of type and letter design. He has been a source of inspiration to many of us.
Well, I've always thought of myself as a designer who teaches, but in actuality, I'm probably a teacher who designs. I'm located in Los Alamitos, and I currently am a professor of art at Cerritos College, and I'm head of the graphic design area and currently chairman of the art department. The fine art background that I acquired through my undergraduate work has been a very important factor in my design career. It has given me a broadened, wide-ranging scope and a heightened aesthetic sensibility. The early years in a corporate design office were particularly valuable, and I had two very good teachers who were senior designers with the corporation. These two designers were responsible for introducing me to lettering, show card work with the brush, and calligraphy. My appetite for lettering and calligraphy continued to grow, and I was able to feed that appetite through collecting books on the subject of lettering, calligraphy, typography, and type design. During this time, while I was teaching full-time at Cerritos College, I also maintained an active freelance business in design, and on many design projects I had the opportunity to include customized or creative lettering and calligraphy into the projects. Some of these projects were the packaging design that I did for Lavash, Hawaii, or the corporate alphabet I designed for the J. Paul Getty Trust. My passion for letter forms continues to grow, and currently I have become involved in retraining myself to this new computer age that we're faced with, and I have a deep interest in how letter forms can be manipulated and created and used using this new technology.
According to Anton Ahrensweg, professionalism and imagination ought not to be antagonistic. As if to prove the point, we have just seen at various stages of their careers a number of outstanding students. Outstanding because they have married their profession to their imagination. Students because they have accepted the fact that education begins early and lasts a lifetime. Their college experience, though it may have been the catalyst which provoked their direction, was only one part of their education. As they learned, they also taught. They infected those around them with their enthusiasm. They set the standards for the quality of thought and skill which the teacher could expect in his classroom. They set the measure for their generation. These outstanding students made outstanding teachers. I know, because they taught me so much.